Are going live now at Oneness Talk Radio. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Awakenings Moments to Inspire. I am Angela, or Angel with an A, and this is my absolutely beautiful, angelic co host, Sarah Hazel Evans. Say hi, Sarah. Give out a woot woot.
Hello.
We are here today on this glorious February 16th. We've already hit the hump of February. We're on the other side, and I can't wait. Spring has sprung. I cannot wait. It's just around the corner. I can smell it in the air. It's going to be grand. But
Oh,
for those of you
here
who I know,
it's here.
and so, for those of you who are brand new and have never listened to us here, we are broadcasting live at Oneness Talk Radio YouTube, Oneness Talk Radio Facebook, and at onenesstalkradio.com too. So, please, if you are in the chats and listening here live, please just co-create with us. Co-create this hour with us. Talk to us in the chat, each other. We read them here, and we're going to do a really serious deep dive into a interesting subject. Let's put it that way, right, Sarah?
Yes, yes. And I really quick when I say hey to B, love you B. Glad you're here with us.
Yes, love you all. Batya, Queen Bee. We are going to dive deep into judgment, but before we do, let's do our Ave Sa breaths, eh?
Yes, let's find our center here. So let's do 3 Avesas. We're going to call in the divine, release with a saw and a smile. So breathing in, Ave, smiling. Breathing in, Ave, with a smile. And last one, breathing in a really good, divine Ave. Feeling that and release. And a smile. We are here.
We are here. I love just filling my lungs and feeling my lungs expand with all of that beautiful air on an Ave Sa breath. And it just allows that kind of stress and anxiety or anything that you might have building up inside of you just to kind of release out with that saw too. And I don't know about you, but in times of difficulty, I will admit the saw can come in handy to make to really get those emotions out. However you want to do it, can come out as a beautiful saw.
See, I love the home. I love how you can do the three, and it doesn't all of a sudden you have that same feeling like you've just crawled into bed and laid your head down on your pillow. It's just that same that arrival, that space.
Yeah. It's like you float down into yourself.
Yeah.
Coming home again. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that.
All right, I'm really excited for this talk. I'm excited to do this. So let's do the numerology and then let's go into this.
No wasting time here. Sarah's wanting to dive deep into this one today, folks. So the ascended numerology for today is an 8, everyone. And what the ascended numerology, an 8, is for today is perfect because when you think of it is actually the energy of the spinning lotus of archangelic energy. So when you think of, I always think of the Merkaba as a symbol of the spinning lotus. And again, so fitting for those of you who were a part of Monday Magic, but also just in general, if you don't know about the Merkaba, it is the 2 triangles transposed one on top of the other, one pointing up and one pointing down. And even just focusing, I have that written on my bathroom mirror actually, and I put my face in it so that one point touches here and one point touches here. And then I just take a deep Ave Sa breath and then I spin it and I spin it and I hold that love, that archangelic energy into myself. And what the archangelic energy is it's I want to say a warrior energy, but not aggressive warrior. It's more like you're going to hold the space of love and light no matter what. That your action in life is to hold that archangelic love and light, and that you're going to act as a model for that, and you're going to go out into the world because you know that you are protected, that you are safe, you are in your spinning Merkaba of archangelic light, that spinning lotus of energy. So go out there, take the action steps that you need to take today, because that's what really is going to speak volumes today in the energy of the 8 is action as opposed to words. So take that step, put your hand onto your heart, take that Indiana Jones foot out and take that step, because you are absolutely supported in it all.
And I'll add, I love the Merkaba because whenever I do that, I feel like it clears a veil. I
Yep.
feel that there's a clarity that happens, and it is one that's a clarity of where you step up. It's like that presence, and
Yep.
that's what I love about the Merkaba. It's like, whew, all right, I'm
Yep.
here. It really plays right into that. I am here. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Exactly.
I love the Merkaba.
I love it. I love it. My dog just bumped my system. My apologies, everyone. Yeah, it's just a big animal. Sometimes it can be problematic. So
they're active today.
make room.
Okay, so let's go into this conversation.
Yes,
And I'm really glad, Angela was asking me of, if I had any thoughts or anything. And I had been feeling this for a few days where I was like, the idea of releasing judgment. And I thought, let's dive deep. Let's dive deep into this, because judgment is a really interesting thing. And it's interesting in how we feel judged at times. And it's interesting how we might project judgment at times, how it is so subconscious. It is something that we probably, how far back, if you were to sit there and think to yourself, at what point do you recall either first time you noticed being judged or being judging? I mean, could you come to that first point of your life? It's almost like, did we start judging the moment we started walking and talking? I mean, at what point, it's like, how far back, how ingrained is that in us?
Yeah.
And, to release it, it's like, okay, give me some clues and some definitions, some things that help me to know how to understand it. And I really kind of sat with it and thought, how much, our ego and judgments together. Like I told when we chatted last night, and I said, it's almost like judgment is, the cousin to our ego. It's like our cousin Guido, or whatever. It's like, what is judgment? So I am really, really excited that we get to play with this idea of it, so it can help lend us in being able to release judgment. And I am, anybody who is out there who is listening, jump into the chat. Like, what is it? What is judgment? What comes up for you as we're discussing and talking things? I want to make this a discussion, because I'm really wanting to go deep and being able to get those little clicks of, aha, okay, I'm opening my awareness around.
Yeah, exactly. When you were talking about and asking me that question, I was like, no, you really can't. I really couldn't think of even just my first memory, which is everyone, if you can call up your first memory in life, I think about my first memory, and my first memory was absolutely rooted in judgment, huge judgments. I was sick. I was 2 years old. I had to be left at a hospital all by myself. My parents were taken away. That was the time when your parents couldn't stay with you in a hospital. And I was just like, and I had all of these. Why is my mom and dad going away? Why is my mom leaving? Why is my dad taking my mom away? So all of these things, judgment, they don't love me anymore. And of course, is the first
Yes.
conclusion. And therefore, and then that becomes a trauma that then becomes rooted in me that you then have to face and move through. But it's a judgment right there, just in the actions of what was occurring. I made a snap judgment at 2 years old that my parents don't love me anymore and don't want me. And that lasted 44 years past that I had to
Wow.
look at and to release and to let go. So I maybe challenge everyone to kind of look at your first memory. Do you hold judgments around that? And if so, maybe start from there. And say, another thing I think that's always tied to judgment is this level of forgiveness. But I think too, in some cases, when the hurt is, you have to forgive. But I like to think that on certain levels, like for my instance, my judgment of my parents that they didn't love me, so on and so forth, there's really no forgiveness that other than to myself, that I need to let go of that and forgive myself for those thoughts. So
I'm having so many things just in my head that I'm like, I'm wondering, like, like cut you off.
wave your
But
hands.
but it's so interesting because even like you bringing up that of your first memory and all that, it's like, okay, how it's easy to see that there is that root of hurt,
Yep.
the root of pain, that root of less than, the
Yep.
root of, it's so interesting because, just like the ego, it's like we want to be an individual.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be able to be like, look, here we are. It's like, in some ways the ego is overcompensating, saying, I am worthy. Here it is. I am worthy. And the judgment is trying to keep us humble and say, you are worthy. I don't know. It's like a really weird thing because it is that judgment kicks in on another level of those lower emotions that we have, those feelings of separations, the feelings of not being good enough, and either we are feeling that we are being judged, or we take that, oh, I don't want to be less than,
Mm-hmm.
separated, or whatever, so now I'm going to judge it onto other people, right?
Yep. Yep.
Because whenever we're judging on another person, there's always a gift of what is that showing you in your fear, or in your pain, or in your hurt, or in your less than. Is
Mm-hmm.
always a call to say, okay, let me know how to love myself more.
Yeah.
Judgment period is, it's like, okay, that's that self-love. There's the self-love.
Yeah.
But it,
Oh,
oh, go ahead.
Sarah, go ahead.
Nope. What?
What was coming to me and was that our judgments also come from not just our own experiences, but our judgments can be placed upon us from other people outside of who we are. Like the moment we are born, we are taking in all of this information, we're absorbing it into ourselves. And then from there, we use that information to determine that a stove is hot and we shouldn't touch it, or, but and those kind of everyday things that we learn. But there are also the things that we learn that are placed upon us by our society and by our culture, and where we might not necessarily have determined that on our own. It was maybe just sent to us or put upon us by another person. And I find sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I can't distinguish between what is a judgment and what is an assessment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I'm really happy that you said that because, that is another thing that I think is interesting about judgment. And this might be sidestepping a little bit, but first off, I'm going to say this. I think it is extremely beautiful that um, that we are being called to release judgment. I think that in this time, in this space, because releasing judgment, you heal not only yourself, but you heal generations, and that is so incredibly powerful. So even when you dive in and you make that awareness in yourself of, wow, that's coming from a place of where I feel judged, or that's coming from a place of where I'm projecting judgment, right? When you decide to consciously make a different decision in that moment, that it's so healing. But the interesting thing is again, judgment is like ego. It's like you almost have to say, okay, judgment, sit over here. Sit back here for a little bit. I
Yep.
don't need you like that. I appreciate you showing me something, but you can just sit down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just sit down. And not be attached to your judgments, because that's the other thing, is that you end up, so that's, you release, you attach, right? You release, you attach. And when we are in judgment, we end up feeling guilty for it.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
that is the thing that just, it's like, we end up victimizing ourselves because of this part of our human nature, to sit there, to be our own individual, but try to navigate through a world where we have, where we feel that we're being seen and exposed. We're be able to create our own belief systems. I like red, you like blue. I don't know. I'm going to sit there and be like, hush, she's one of those crazy blue people. I don't know, that blue person, whatever the case might be. And maybe, but it's like we create these lines of division.
Yeah.
Through judgment.
Very much so. Yep.
And then, and part of that is how we create our identity.
Yeah.
But then we tend to feel guilty when we judge. So it's like, how do you build your identity and still be in that neutral space where you free yourself from saying, okay, I'm an okay person because I want to paint everything in my house red and not blue. It's like, I'm okay with that. Like, Here I am.
I think the first, what came to me is when you were talking, where do you begin? And I think the first thing is, are you listening to your heart in that? And if you're listening to your heart, then you're not in a place of judgment. So if you're judging, you're coming from here as opposed to here. So start thinking more with brain as opposed to this brain. Judgments are just your, I've said this before, your judgments are just your survival instincts run amok. And because things are much more, aren't simple, they're much more, they're busy, they're loud, they're everything everywhere. Our lives are so much more complicated than hunter gatherers. So what we had to judge as being good or bad, so on and so forth, is far more complex than what would happen years and years and with our ancestors. Nowadays, I think we've just taken and allowed our judgments, because we're constantly in that feedback of stimulus. We are constantly thinking that we need to judge because there's constant stimulus coming at us. And when there's stimulus coming at you in the wild, you're either in fight, flight mode, right? So you're constantly judging. Well, the problem is we don't have that in nowadays. It's just constant stressors. It's constant things to judge that you need to determine, up, down, left, right, all around. Far more, and it's processing and how allowing us to process.
Well, and there's a discernment. We're trying to discern everything. We're trying to put importance on everything. We're trying to be important. And there's so much going on. And like you said, you made a comment about the stimulus and everything coming, all these things coming at you.
Yep.
And maybe instead of addressing like, okay, wait, I need to simplify.
Yeah.
It's like, are you, it's such and I love that. I love that this is a time where we're, again, the emphasis on releasing judgment, because it is a chaotic time for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And and it does come into that place of learning how to come inward.
Mm-hmm.
Learning to be able to say, again, why am I feeling this way? Where am I feeling it? What is my reason for feeling like this? Like, where is this coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that I really truly believe in? Why do I believe in this?
Yeah.
Or why do I feel this? Is this true? That's a great one. Is this true?
It's true.
Is this true? And then what am I going to do about this? I mean, it's almost like, they always used to say, when your ego shows up, just laugh at it. Just, okay, Sarah, But what about just laughing, like, if judgment comes up, and be like, okay, that's funny. Okay, there you are, judgment. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, that's what I do when I catch myself judging. It's like, oh, I see what you did there. And I try. Yeah, it's about giving yourself some slack, letting go of that guilt and that shame, which is, again, just another judgment.
Yeah.
And it becomes almost cyclical, and you get yourself kind of immersed in it. There was something else I wanted to touch base on, but it's flown out of my brain almost as quickly as it goes in. So I can't
judge yourself on it.
Don't judge myself. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's what it was. So it was interesting. I came across something today that I was watching by a beautiful YouTuber by the name of Aaron Abke. If you ever get a chance to watch his stuff, he's really, really good.
Yeah.
But he was speaking to how that our five senses are what create our reality, and that everything else beyond our five senses are not real. So this goes back to when you were asking, what is the truth? So what is the truth? So what are your five senses telling you? And that is the physical reality truth, but also go inward. And what is the truth? The truth is that you're a spiritual being having a physical 3D experience. So if you just remember that, and your judgments can also be double. The thing that really caught me is once you get into that flow state where you've released your judgments, and you're in that, and you're coming from that level of heart intelligence, and you're no longer thinking with your mind, and you've released the judgments, and you're in that flow state. The moment you think, even just to celebrate, oh my God, I'm in my flow state. Yeah. Even though it's a celebratory thing, you've taken yourself out of the flow state because you're judging yourself. Look at me. Yay, I'm in the flow state. Well, that technically is a judgment. But when you're living it and experiencing it, you're not thinking, oh, I'm in the flow state. You just are in the flow state. And you are without judgment. You just let it go. And that, when I heard that, I was just like, he is absolutely right. It's almost like whatever your heart says and your five senses are telling you, that's kind of your truth. The rest of it is all the judgments that you have laid upon yourself, upon the outside world, and upon other people and other things. And that really hit home to me today. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, I'm going to really quick give a shout out to Lynn. Hey, Lynn. Lynn's showing up in the chat. You said some things earlier, and it hit me that when it comes to judgment, that for me, I couldn't help but see how judgment to me, it's an indicator of where I am in trusting and knowing the universal laws. It's like, am I really understanding that and how they apply in my life? And I love how judgment is also a huge indicator with where I am in neutrality. Where am I in that sea?
Yeah.
Right? Because if I'm feeling judgment of any kind, if it's inflicted or if I'm inflicting it,
yeah,
then I am not in that neutrality. I am not in the understanding of what I know to be true about the universal laws and how they play together and how they affect all of life and how we're all one.
Mm-hmm.
And that all is okay, that everything matters and nothing matters at the same time. And that's the beautiful thing about judgment is the reminder that as much as everything matters, nothing matters.
Yeah. Judgments make amazing mirrors when you catch them, I find. Because but being in the neutrality or being in a space of a more neutral space, you might not already be in that loving, detached neutrality space, but you're becoming more and more neutral. Your ability to be aware and to catch yourself come along. You release the judgment behind it, and you are a little bit more prepared to let it go. I find you just release the judgment and smile at it all. You don't have to be openly. I think to release all judgment might be for super high ascended masters. I'm sure they all release judgment. I'm sure Christ energy, total loving, unconditional love, no judgment there whatsoever. But while we're here on this planet, we have to judge at least a little bit in order to determine if the fruit is bad or if, I should go into the dark alley. Some judgments are good and some are not necessarily so good. But when you're more aware, you're able to use that superpower that we have to make discernments and to come up with possible answers to those discernments to let us know whether or not we're safe. And that's basically what it boils down to is...
Well, you made the comment, like the difference between assessing something. So assessing something, discerning something, and judging something.
Yeah, right.
It's like you have these three different things that sometimes, you can be at a, in a group or whatever, and you are, maybe assessing something or maybe discerning something. And maybe judging something. But if you're in there and all of a sudden someone says, Angela, why are you being so judgmental? Why are you judging that? Then all of a sudden that hits like this hot point. And all of a sudden that can become an argument, a debate, or you just walk away feeling your own self-inflicted judgment. Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, and then you're starting to, so it goes like down this rabbit hole. And it's just a very interesting thing how even if we're just trying to weed it all out, if we're just all of a sudden, weeding something out that might come off like I'm being judgmental, but really I'm trying to work through something here. I mean, have you ever had that happen? Where you're trying to work through something? As you work through something, you're kind of picking it apart to get to the to get to the core of it, to be like, oh, okay, now I know and I'm good. You know, you can go ahead and have the pepperoni pizza. I want the sausage pizza. We're good. You know, it's like, you know, all right, I've figured it out now. I know what I like. I know what I don't like.
Yeah.
And not meaning for it to be judging, right? But it's just a very interesting thing that does happen. Like you said, you know, it's how do you be gentle with yourself as you're trying to find yourself and find your way?
I think the number one thing that you need to do when you're healing is to love yourself and like you were saying before, cut yourself some slack. So and I always used to say, it got you so much X number of years to get this way, to bind up to with all of your judgments and all of your a little bit of time for you to travel the snarl that you've created. Snarl's not even a proper word, because your life is this beautiful expanse. And see, even I said snarl, and that's a judgment right there. Yeah. Life is this expanse that we have. And because of our judgments, we've taken what should be this beautiful work of tapestry laid out before us that we can pick and choose what we've learned for each individual place. But our judgments have gotten us so upset, hurt, bound up that our tapestry has become this snarl. And we have to now go and pick each thread out and straight. You know, when you get a pulled thread in a piece of clothing, you got to put it back and pull it through and try and smooth it, let it lay down, right? That's basically what you're trying to do with your life, is to figure out what judgments are unhealthy and what are healthy. You know, the hot stove one, healthy. Dark alley, healthy. You know, the fact that, you know, this person is mean, or I need to be doing this way, not so healthy.
Well, and what I heard when you made the comment about, you know, the healing of it, to me, it's a journey. Yeah. It is all a journey. Yeah. And at moments, you know, you might be healing. At moments, you're just simply walking. Yeah. Moments you might be sleeping. You know, you might be doing all three at the same time. Who knows, right? But it's all a journey. And that's a beautiful thing, thinking of that tapestry, you know, the tapestry of our lives, the tapestry as we journey through this human experience. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you know, as you learn to put your ego in the back seat, mm-hmm. It's like, where are you putting the judgments? What is your relationship with your judgments? Because mm-hmm. Are your judgments ruling you? Or, you know, do you have that relationship with the judgment that maybe it only comes out on the third Sunday of every 10th year, you know, and it's just there to let you know that you're still alive, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what are you doing when, and I think the idea of releasing judgment is learning how to be as neutral as possible to the experience of life that we tend to hold these stories of attachments to.
Yep. Yep. Yes. I did a beautiful rampage this morning with a beautiful being that both Sarah and I get together with. And we were talking, and part of my rampage was literally giving thanks to the ability to use history and to use that as the ability of discernment. But there doesn't have to be judgment attached to that history. Why? Because it's behind us. It's past us. We can't do anything physically about it. But what we can do is take the energy out of it. And how do we take the energy out of it? By taking the judgments that were created throughout that entire history, however long it might be, 2,000 plus years. And we can bit by bit dismantle it in our own hearts and within our own selves. Take our snarl, take our sweater, and get it all smoothed out and back in order, and for our own tapestries. And then once you're able to move forward, your tapestry can then cover and shield and light the way for another person, so that they can figure out that they don't have to hold those series of judgments. Their history is let go, and they can let that history be in the past, and then use the tools that history has shown you, free of the judgments, and able to then make positive, creative, forward movement and forward thinking steps in policy, in life, in relationships in general, just with our fellow human beings. I really honestly believe that.
What's coming through for me and hearing you say that is how valuable appreciation and gratitude and thankfulness is. And especially like if you're ever feeling it towards somebody else or towards yourself, when you catch that awareness, it's like the power of finding the opposite of what you're seeing. Even if it is, you have to think back to when they were 3 years old, or if you have to project forward with them being like, you know what, I know I see them, this is who they really are. Or even like, just like when we do our rampages, going with the most neutral thing that you can find.
Mm-hmm.
And even, with yourself, it's like, I think of myself and I think of who I am today. At any point, I could go back to my yesterday, or I could go back to 20 years ago, and I could look at a picture of myself and be like, oh my gosh, I seriously wore that? Like, what was that? It's like you can sit there, but I love how you can also, if you really allow yourself to soften your eyes, soften your gaze, soften your mind, you can see how beautiful the progression has been.
Mm-hmm.
And why maybe you had to go through all of that, just like in history.
Mm-hmm.
We might not have liked certain parts of our history as a culture, as society, but we know that even in parts that seemed very chaotic and very stressful, that there was something happening that allowed us to get where we are now.
Yeah.
You just look at it and be like, okay, yeah, this happened, but it was eye-opening for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yep.
It was expansive in some way.
Yes. Love history for that.
And it is something that judgments allow us to, if we stop and we find out, okay, what is it that I can learn at this moment about myself? What is this that I can learn more about how to release, to let go, to allow, to expand? That's a huge gift.
Oh, yeah. That keeps on giving.
It keeps on giving.
Why? Because you've put that judgment to bed here now. Therefore, it can't move forward with you.
And you might have to revisit it again.
Who knows?
I mean, you might have to revisit again.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you release judgment, this came to me yesterday too. When you release judgment, the shame and the guilt go away.
Yeah. The shame and the guilt.
The shame.
Isn't that an interesting part of it?
Because you do, when you have judgments, at least from, and this usually applies mainly in my thinking to self-judgment in particular, is when you're judging something negative, and it's usually negative, let's put it that way. Those are the ones that tend to harm us the most, are the negative ones. When we are able to let that go, you don't feel shame, like, oh, or guilt. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. That all just disappears. It just
Yeah.
goes poof.
Well, and B makes a great point. Forgiveness.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that's the thing. Think about it. How much judgment is held in not being forgiving, in that unforgiveness, which is a really interesting thing because I know that, it's like you have to move through it sometimes to get to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And I think forgiveness could be a whole nother show, a whole nother candid talk.
Oh, yes.
But it's true. Once you forgive, once you find forgiveness, and there is no textbook on how forgiveness looks for any one person.
Nope.
But when you learn how to forgive and get to that space, that also is such a release of judgment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say if there were any textbook on forgiveness, it would say one thing: start with yourself first.
Yeah.
And truly, when you do that, you begin to open the door to the awareness of what and where you're leading. And that is then the next step, realizing, oh, I was judging that. And then from there, you take the next step in unsnarling your little thread of whatever it might be. Yeah. Interesting. I love forgiveness. It definitely could be an absolute have umpteen different. I've talked on it so many times, but it's almost like you could do a whole series on both judgment and forgiveness. And both of them are so intertwined with one another. Gratitude is another one. And I always find they're almost kind of, so for me, when I find I judge, I do it in almost like in a cycle. I catch myself in a judgment, and then I'm aware of it and I release it. But I'm also, I smile and I kind of, I'm in this place of neutrality where I let it go, and I'm able to laugh at it and to be relieved in it. So it adds that much more. I do. I celebrate that. Oh, I caught that. Yeah. And what it does is it builds. It lets your ego go a little bit more. I guess that's where I'm going with that. Yeah. Your ego can kind of do the dance, and it's like, oh, I'm learning. Yes, okay, I'm getting this. I've got this. I can relax a bit more.
I think you never thought about it. When you think of it, though, it's like celebration, forgiveness, and appreciation.
Yeah.
How that right there is like just a powerful concoction of being in the moment that is just it says, okay, I'm growing and I'm beyond that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It's like you can be in that neutral space, but there's something really nice when you also find, so it's being aware that you are not being neutral, but then being aware of
the ability
of that.
Yeah.
Of being like rejoicing in who you are.
Yeah.
Rejoicing in what you're doing. I think that is also an important thing to remember, that as much as we might, like it's like flipping the script, right? How it's like if we're in judgment and all of a sudden, instead of B says it's my eraser, but if you're in judgment, all of a sudden, you're starting to feel guilty and you're judging yourself or whatever, or judging yourself even more, maybe. I don't know. But when there's that guilt and that shame that come in with judgment, and it's important to find the awareness.
Yes.
That you're doing any of that you're judging, or that you're all of a sudden now throwing shame and guilt in it. But it's like, then what are you doing at that point? once you put that awareness in there, what are you doing at that point? Are you making a different decision? What is your choice at that point? You know what I mean? Because if you're deciding like, you know what, no, I'm just going to stay and ride this train, and you're
Yeah.
going to go deeper in it, you're building up boundaries, you're pointing fingers and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that is your choice.
Yep.
And that is your experience. But what if you made a different choice? What if you decide to make a different experience come up? Rejoice in it.
Yeah.
Rejoice, celebrate, acknowledge that in doing that, you're forgiving yourself. Acknowledge at that moment that you have so much to be appreciative of, that you have so much to be grateful and thankful for. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that I am like, oh my gosh, I am so grateful, so thankful that I have this wisdom in me, that
Yeah.
I have this ability within me to be open, to understand the things that I understand, that I'm on this path consciously wanting to be on this path. I mean, let me celebrate that, me, because sometimes I wonder if I'm by myself in this, and
Yes.
it's like, wow. So yeah, um, I was just reading B's chat. It's been January in the state of being for me. February has been forgiveness. I love that, B.
I love
Yes.
that. Yes.
And February, forgiveness. I mean, talk about some heart energy right there.
Mm-hmm. The month
Forgiveness is great for love.
Yes. Self-forgiveness was the number one thing that you need to do first. But what I also love about the releasing of judgment is the expansion of the relationships that you can have with other people when you let go of those judgments keep us from getting close to people, right? That they help with the separation part. I think you touched on that before. They help to keep us separated. Oh, I can't be part of you because I paint my apartment red and you paint your apartment blue. Well, I'm a red person and you're a blue person. Well, no, that's not. So when you release your judgments, you find your relationships with others around you expand exponentially. There you go. Hey, Yvonne, it's wonderful to see
Hi,
you.
Yvonne. Yes. Being present in presence is the place to be. I love that.
I love that too.
That is a powerful, powerful statement right there.
Oh my goodness. I'm looking at the clock, my darling. We've got 9 beautiful minutes left with this wonderful crowd of people. Is there anything that you wanted to touch on that maybe we haven't touched on that's coming up into you? Because I know this was a topic close to your heart, near and dear.
I do. I feel that this topic, I think, is one that we could probably even go deeper. And I would love for anybody who's listening to email us, send us some thoughts, send us some ideas. I think this is a topic that deserves some more discussion around, because I think it is one that would be perfect to really kind of, like, for myself, bring awareness on how to release even more, how to go deeper even more. That's my thing. And I know my dad once said that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is actually a Benjamin Franklin quote, I believe. But that is so true about judgment, and how much judgment and joy go hand in hand.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was funny because when you were talking earlier, I was relating judgment through the lens of peace, love, and joy. And when you release the judgment, judgment takes so much of both of those things away, all of those things away from you, peace, love, and joy. If you're in a judging space, you're obviously not in peace, because you're not in the now moment. If you're in the now moment, you feel safe, you feel secure, you feel confident, you're ready to rock, you're in the flow. So when you're judging, you're obviously not in peace because you're not in the now moment. You judging is obviously separation. So you're not in love, and judging just saps all the joy out of your life if you're constantly pointing fingers or afraid of something. There's so much that a simple defense mechanism gone haywire could really take our lives over and create a whole alter ego, no pun intended, to what's going on.
I think you've just said so much in that little bit right there, and it's, it is true. It's a defense mechanism. Humanistically, I think it's trying to do something to protect us.
Yes.
Just like our ego would, but it does go haywire really quick because we're not taught to understand it and to catch it and to get it, just like our ego, before it runs amok and it controls us.
Yeah, exactly. I loved what B has written here. She says, receiving comes in so many forms, and it absolutely does. It absolutely does. And so does the release of judgment come in so many forms. Like, I find it's the sly little ones that I didn't even realize I had, that when you get a little more fine-tuned, dialed into your awareness levels, you pick up these levels of judgments going, huh? Where did that come from? I didn't even know I had that.
Well, I just had pop in my head that the judgment is the trigger to our ego. It's like when judgment pops in, it's like it's ready to unlock the door to let our ego just like we like that person in the party, like, I'm here.
Well, let me at them, one or the other.
It's a gatekeeper or something. I don't know, but yeah, judgment is an interesting thing to dive into, and I'm glad we did today. I'm really happy we did.
Yeah.
I walking away from this conversation, I feel like my awareness is going to be more neutral to it.
Yeah.
And I feel that, in those moments where judgment might rear its head, that I'm going to catch it quicker and I'm going to laugh at it.
Yeah.
And let it know that it's okay. Just like with my ego, it's okay.
Yeah.
I got this.
You're going to use it as the tool that it's supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be a tool. It's not supposed to create a whole new persona for you. It's just supposed to be a tool.
I'm no longer married to it. I'm no longer dating it. It's just one of those things and I'm married now, so I can't say it, but it's one thing on the dating app. I'm just going to keep swiping right to, or left. I guess left, right? Because you swipe right. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
I can determine which.
I'm just going to just
move along. Move along.
I'm releasing it. I'm not letting it go. Just.
Well, anybody, I would love to, in the last few minutes, just express what Sarah was saying there too, is let's have a deep discussion on some of these topics, being judgment and forgiveness and awareness. And we would love for you to just drop us an email. My email is waterloveandlight@gmail.com, and I'll also forward those on to Sarah. We'll get Sarah's up next week for you all so that you can have her email address as well. But I would love to dive deep with the community on this a little bit further and to interact with you all. And we're also always interested in having guests come on. And that just also I wanted to touch base with everybody just to let you know that we are going to have a beautiful guest on next week. And we're going to dive into her inspirational story. I can't wait for you to, I'm sure some of you within the Yoga of Self-Ascension community already have met this beautiful angel, but I can't wait for the rest of you to get to know her too, because she's absolutely fabulous. Anything else?
I'm excited to bond a little bit deeper and because she's such a joy. I'm excited for that next week.
Everyone, this is my Willow. Willow, everyone, Willow. He decides to jump up on me right at the very last moment. So is there anything else that we want to say before we let all of our beautiful listeners go here today?
No, I'm really happy that we had this time together.
Yeah.
And I feel very uplifted and good. Mm-hmm. And I hope everybody that's listening now or listening, in the future, I hope that, they think a little bit about, their ideas around this topic. Mm-hmm. And I hope they share it with us, because I think we're going to be talking about this again and having fun with it, because I feel that it should be a fun conversation. Yes. Because I do feel that it is, that this is a journey.
Yep.
And having these discussions, learning a little bit more about these things, we should have been taught about it as a child. We should have been taught about it in school. And I'm so happy to see Bea and Yvonne and Lynn chiming in the chat, and looking forward to hearing from everybody else.
Yes, absolutely loving you all. And we can't wait to see you again next week. Also, before we go, I just wanted to let everybody know, I forgot to mention this at the beginning. We are having a new moon ceremony circle, on the 20th, which is Monday coming up. And it's at 7:00 Eastern Standard Time. So if you're interested, just drop me a email and I will get you on the list for sure. So we hope to see you there at the New Moon Circle. I think Sarah's coming this.
Absolutely.
Sarah comes them. So we can't wait to see you all there. And yes. Much gratitude to you too, Yvonne. Much love, ladies.
Love to everybody. Mwah.
Bye.
Love you.
Namaste.